Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome back, everybody. In the series, we started reading Bediüzzaman's The 20th Flush, which was on sincerity. A quick reminder, Bediüzzaman placed a great emphasis on us being sincere people. It is also a Quranic instruction. وَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ مُخْلِصًا. That means worship Allah with sincerity. So the discussion around sincerity comes in two pieces. We started the first part, which is the 20th flush, which mainly answers a key question. Why there is cooperation among disbelievers, whilst believers seem to be arguing against each other and maintain rivalry and competition. The question is, shouldn't the believers cooperate more than disbelievers? And Bediüzzaman gives some key answers to this question. So far, we have covered first three causes why believers do not cooperate as they are expected. So today we're going to continue looking at other causes. This is going to be the first part of sincerity, the 20th flush. In the second part, which we will cover in the future lectures, Bediüzzaman is very systematic. He likes giving very concise, easy to remember answers and instructions. In the second part, he gives us rules to stick to in order to gain sincerity. You do this, and that, then you become a sincere person. And also he tells us things to avoid in order not to lose sincerity. And he gives us a list of things to avoid in bullet points. We are going to come to that second part in the future. Today, we are going to continue answering that question we opened up last lesson. Why there is cooperation and cooperation among disbelievers, whilst believers compete against each other. Now, let's look at the fourth cause. As you are all aware, the main idea is not me delivering a lecture, rather we read the text together, and hopefully you can always go back to the text and revisit and study it in your own time. The fourth cause. Okay, this is Bediüzzaman speaking now. In just the same way that rivalry and disagreement among the people of guidance do not arise from failure to foresee consequences or from short-sightedness, so too wholehearted agreement among the people of misguidance does not result from far-sightedness or loftiness of vision. So this is the first consolation. We are not in competition and rivalry because we are in the wrong, or disbelievers are not collaborating and cooperating and helping one another because they have a fantastic vision and they are in the right. That is not the reason. Rather, the people of guidance, through the influence of truth and reality, do not succumb to the blind emotions of the soul and follow instead the far-sighted inclinations of the heart and the intellect. Since, however, they fail to preserve their sense of direction and their sincerity, they are unable to maintain their high station and fall into dispute. So the believers, they base their life and actions on the Quranic and the prophetic teachings. So by default, they are of the opinion that they are in the right. But this doesn't necessarily make cooperation easy. As for the people of misguidance, under the influence of the soul and caprice and the dominance of sense perception, which is blind to all consequences and always prefers an ounce of immediate pleasure to a ton of future pleasure, they come together in eager concord for the sake of instant benefit and immediate pleasure. So, for example, from a believer's perspective, when you take an action, when you do a good deed, do you expect an instant return, instant reward? No, because our belief system tells us life, however long or short it is, doesn't really matter. Life is a test. You accumulate good deeds and bad deeds, and based off your balance sheet, you get reward or retribution in the hereafter. So from believer's perspective, most of the reward comes in the hereafter. So it's a long-term thing. This is very good human psychology. If you are expecting imminent reward or retribution, you change your behavior. For example, let's say you are driving down the motorway and you feel there is a speed camera ahead or a police camera van ahead, and you know you can potentially get a penalty fairly quickly. So you adjust your behavior because penalty is imminent. But sometimes you are not aware of the checks and controls or cameras, and probably even there is any penalty, it might come very later in the life. Suddenly you become reluctant. You think, oh, it's far, far away, nothing imminent. So in a way, if a person is not a believer, whatever he does, he either expects an instant reward or some kind of punishment. He avoids punishment and he works toward getting instant reward. Whereas believer, when he does a good deed, positive action, he does not expect an instant reward because he expects something far, far down the line in the hereafter. So this difference in mindset changes human behavior. So disbelievers, they are very eager because they work for this life, and in most cases when they cooperate, they get the result quickly. It is measurable and it is achievable within one's lifetime. Whereas for most believers, yeah, you have done some good deeds, you don't even take any credit, probably you're going to get reward in the hereafter. So this is the key difference. Indeed, I'm reading the text now, the second line. Indeed, lowly and heartless worshippers of the ego are bound to congregate around worldly and immediate pleasures and benefits it is true that the people of guidance have set their faces to the rewards of the hereafter and its perfections in accordance with the lofty instructions of the heart and the intellect. But even though a proper sense of direction, a complete sincerity, and self-sacrificing union and concord are possible, because they have failed to rid themselves of egoism and on account of deficiency and excess, they lose their union, that lofty source of power, and permit their sincerity to be shattered. Their duty in regard to the hereafter is also harm. God's pleasure is not had easily. So we mentioned about this human psychology. If reward is imminent, you work towards it in collaboration because, okay, if we get together, we can get this done and we can get the reward. But when it comes to divine matters, reward is usually in the hereafter, and believers, they don't really feel the urge of cooperation and collaboration. But according to Bediüzzaman, it is essential to attain sincerity. Yes, the reward is in the hereafter. You still need to cooperate with one another and avoid rivalry and competition. Let's look at the next paragraph. The cure and remedy for this serious disease is to be proud of the company of all those traveling the path of truth in accordance with their principle of love for God's sake, to follow them and defer leadership to them, and to consider whoever is walking on God's path to be probably better than oneself, thereby breaking the ego and regaining sincerity. Okay, so this is the cure of the problem. Bediüzzaman is instructing us to cooperate and give them the leadership. He says, don't try to be the visible person. Don't try to be the alpha males. So, if they are working for the divine service, leave them the leadership. Be a follower. Make a positive contribution. It doesn't make you a lesser person. On the contrary, if you are qualified, if you are a natural leader, but if you compromise, you earn other people's respect. They think, this man is great, he should be leading. But look at him, he's very humble, and he gives the leadership to less qualified person. So this is the lesson, this is the cure. Give the leadership to others. And always, another principle, always assume the other person is better than you. It is difficult, especially in the Western context. You know, you go to job interview, they ask you questions so that you praise yourself. Okay, why should we hire you? Oh, I'm great. You know, I make a fantastic communicator. This is self-praise. I mean, it is so incompatible with our faith. But in the West, well, not necessarily in the West, almost in every context, you are expected to praise yourself. You're expected to sell yourself. Well, you can do that at a job interview, but when it comes to divine service, hizmet-i imaniye ve Kur'aniye, you should be the contrary. Give the leadership to others. Always assume other person is better than you are. Let's continue with the cure. Salvation is also to be had from that disease by knowing that an ounce of deeds performed in sincerity is preferable to a ton performed without sincerity. And by preferring the status of a follower to that of a leader, with all the danger and responsibility that it involves. Thus, sincerity is to be had, and one's duties of preparation for the hereafter may be correctly performed. So the key is whatever you're doing, you should be doing it with sincerity. If you compromise and if you give leadership to someone else, there is no reason you need to show yourself. You don't need to show off. So it automatically makes you a sincere person. So this brings us to the end of the fourth cause. Let's carry on with the fifth cause. Okay, the fifth cause, I'm reading the text and probably you're going to see it on your screen if you are following with me. Fifth cause, dispute and disagreement among the people of guidance are not the result of weakness, and the powerful union of the people of misguidance is not the result of strength. This is rather self-explanatory. We compete, we are in rivalry with fellow believers, not that because we are weak, or disbelievers, they cooperate, collaborate, they do things together, they support one another, not because they are strong. No. Rather, the lack of union of the people of guidance comes from the power that results from the support provided by perfect belief, and the union of the people of neglect and misguidance comes from the weakness and impotence they experience as a result of their lack of any inward support. The weak from powerful unions, precisely the weak forms powerful unions precisely because of their need for union. Since the strong do not feel a similar need, their unions are weak. There is a beautiful example. Bediüzzaman comes up with very clever examples from real life. He likens believers to lions, and he likens disbelievers to goats. Okay, let's read the example. He says, lions do not need union like foxes and therefore live as individuals because they're powerful. They don't need anybody else's support. They can go out and hunt themselves. Whereas wild goats form a herd to protect themselves against wolves. The community and collective personality of the weak is strong, and the community and collective personality of the strong is weak. There is a suitable allusion to this in the Quran, in the words. This is an interesting one. If you probably heard of this example. Quran sometimes breaks the rules of Arabic grammar. For example, وَقَالَ نِسْوَةٌ لِلْمَدِينَةِ. The women of the city said. Normally, وَقَالَ is male verb. قالت is the correct one. But Nisvetul Medine, I just want to check the exact Quranic verse. Let me just quickly find it. وَقَالَ نِسْوَةٌ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ. And women in the city said. Here, وَقَالَ, the verb said being in the masculine form, although it should be feminine. But the Quran says, no, it is قَالَ, masculine form. For two reasons, women is a feminine noun and also a plural. So-called broken plurals in Arabic are always regarded as feminine. But by contrast, the word, another Quranic word, قَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابِ. A'rab should come with masculine verb. قَالَ is the correct form. But Quran says, قَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابِ. So why is Quran using masculine verb for a group of women whilst using feminine verb for group of men? This is another beauty and miracle of the Quran. Bediüzzaman explains this. The desert Arabs said, قالت الأعراب. This is feminine said. The verb said in this case being in the feminine, even though its subject designates a community of men. Herein lies an indication that an association of weak, meek, and soft women, when they come together, gain strength, toughness, and force, and even acquires a certain kind of virility. So the Quran uses masculine. The use of the masculine form of the verb is therefore most appropriate. On the opposite side, strong men, by contrast, and in particular Bedouin Arabs, trust their own strength. Therefore, their associations are weak, for they assume a stance of softness and caution and take on a kind of femininity, for which the use of the feminine form of the verb is most suitable. So, weak females get together, they become so powerful. Quran uses masculine verb to describe their action. Strong individual Bedouin Arabs, they don't get together, they like acting individually. They are weak. Individually they are strong, but their community is weak. That's why Quran uses feminine verb. This is fantastic. Each time I read this, it just blows my mind. Similarly, let's carry on reading the text. The people of truth submit to and place their reliance in their firm source of support, that is belief in Allah. Hence, they do not present their needs to others or request aid and assistance from them. If they do sometimes make the request, they will not adhere to the persons concerned at all cost. But the worldly ignore in their worldly affairs the true source of support. They fall into weakness and impotence and experience an acute need of assistance, come together, sacrificing themselves wholeheartedly. The people of truth do not recognize and seek the refuge, seek the true strength that is to be found in union, hence they fall into dispute. As an evil and harmful consequence of this failure, by contrast, the people of misguidance and falsehood perceive the strength to be found in union by virtue of their very weakness, and thus acquire union, that most important means for the attainment of all goals. So, this is the problem. The cure and remedy for this disease of discord among the people of truth is to make one's role of conduct the divine prohibition contained in the Quranic verse. Do not fall into dispute, lest you lose heart and your power. وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ. This is Surah Al-Anfal, verse 46. Do not fall into dispute, lest you lose heart and your power depart. And the wise divine command for social life contained in the verse, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. Work together for the sake of virtue and piety. This is Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 5. One must further realize how harmful to Islam dispute is, and how it helps the people of misguidance to triumph over the people of truth, and then wholeheartedly and self-sacrificingly join the caravan of the people of truth with a sense of his own utter weakness and impotence. Finally, one must forget his own person, abandon hypocrisy and pretension, and lay hold of sincerity. So this brings us to the end of the fifth cause. That leaves us two more causes we're gonna cover in the coming lesson. But let's quickly recap what we have learned in these two causes. Yes, people of faith, they rely on God. So they got sense of limitless power. Like lions, they don't need to form a herd. They say, look, I can go out, hunt by myself, I can survive alone. Possibly you can. Whereas weak animals, they get together, they form a herd, but what happens in the end? If you go on your own, you're on your own. You don't have much power, collective power. But if you get together, even the weak get together and they got a strong power to defeat any opponent. And sincerity, ikhlas, requires working in partnership, working in cooperation and collaboration, and avoid rivalry and competition. Give leadership to other person. Let him be the visible face of whatever you guys are doing. And find power in unity and collaboration. I'll finish with one example. Probably you have all seen this documentary. It's very recent. I think it was filmed in Japan. They filmed a beehive, honeybees. They are very small, and there are hornets, fairly large kind of bees, probably 3-4 times bigger than honeybees. And they really attack honeybees and they kill them. You should search for this hornets attacking honeybees. This is the keyword. So the documentary was filmed professionally. There is the beehive with lots of honeybees in it, and there is a little slit. Only small honeybees can go in between. Hornets are a lot bigger. They come, but they can't get in. Anyway, they put a marking, at the entrance of honeybee, they go and they come back as a group to the marking. Now they literally chew the wooden entrance to make it bigger. Unbelievable. I mean, you just think it is CGI or it's AI, but it is real. So those big hornets are chewing to open a bigger gap to get inside the beehive to attack the honeybees. Eventually, they open a hole big enough, they get in one by one. The first one gets in. This is the amazing bit. All honeybees come on top of that big hornet and start vibrating, start buzzing, which generates heat. So much heat that cooks the hornet. And you're just like, wow, this is amazing. Theoretically, one hornet can destroy so many honeybees. But when honeybees get together, they don't use their, claws or needles or their teeth. They just use their power to generate heat. And they literally cook that hornet alive. Just Google it. Hornets attacking honeybees or honeybees killing hornets by heat. These are the keywords. I'm sure you can find the video and it's going to blow your mind. It's a beautiful exam. As Risale-i Nur students, you see everything we observe, everything we watch in and around us in the universe reminds us of Allah's working. So when I watched that video clip, this is what I thought. Bediüzzaman says, when weak come together, they become strong. Honeybees are the fantastic example of that. Right. Anyway, let's stop here and let's continue with 6th and 7th course on our next lesson next month. Thank you for your time. I'll see you on the next one. Wassalamu alaikum.